Jay, you have a new song coming out here shortly, and I'm curious, they often describe your music just kind of as country, but is there a
Uh-huh.
way that you tend to describe the music that you make?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's country, but it is, I grew up with cowgirl roots, so I definitely think that I have some underlying cowgirl-ness to my music. But obviously in the past, my music has been very up-tempo and fast and fun. This first single I'm releasing is obviously something very different I've ever released. I don't
Yes.
release slow songs normally. Um, However, I did feel like it was the best song of choice, being that I had been out of the industry for a while to kind of tell my journey and reintroduce me. But normally I would have said fast, up-tempo cowgirl music, but this one's a little slower.
Who are some of the artists that influenced you when you were growing up?
Oh my gosh, lots. So when I first got into country music, it was Shania Twain, Tim McGraw, Kenny Chesney, the 90s. I mean, obviously the 90s still have influence on me. I'm like, I just don't know if there's ever going to be music as great as the 90s again. So huge influence. For my performing influence, it was definitely Shania Twain. I would study her performances and her videos day after day. I just loved how much energy she had on stage and how wonderful of a performer she was. But obviously felt like I was connected to Reba McEntire because she had that cowgirl, got found singing the national anthem at a rodeo. So I felt like I could relate to her a lot.
You have a new single here coming out on the 28th, Take Me Back to Texas. Where did the concept come from?
Well, I'm going to make a really long story short. So I'll give you a quick overview of my life so it can make sense to the song. Grew up in Australia, grew up in a rodeo family. My parents are both Australian champion rodeo athletes.
You're
Did not
married
grow
to one too.
Yes, I am. And I'm married to one now. Did not grow up in a musical family at all. Did start to love music around that 10, 11, 12 age when I was living in the US. My dad was riding bulls in the PBR. So we lived in Texas for a couple of years. Moved home to Australia. Thought I was going to be a famous singer. So I would enter talent quests and I would not even place. They told me I didn't have the right sound. I wasn't good enough. But I didn't care. I just kept singing the national anthem at rodeos. And one day I was at a rodeo and there was a big tour bus parked with a stage there. And I'm like, well, this person has to be famous. Obviously, they have a big tour bus. I was 14, so I went up to the tour bus door, knocked on it, and the gentleman came out. He was actually a well-known country music singer. And I just said to him, I was like, hey, can I be your opening act? And he's like, yeah, my opening act actually got sick. So I didn't, he said, do you have a band? I said, nope, I got karaoke track. So I got my CD and my little karaoke, and he put me on 2 hours before he went on stage. So there was nobody in the crowd. There was like two people. But I performed like there was 20,000.
I
And
think so.
after that, he asked me to be on his Australian tour and continue to do the rodeos we were both at. So, that one decision of me knocking on his door led to basically my entire career because he helped me write my songs, record them, get my first Australian record deal at 16. Um, the point of the story is at 20, I signed a record deal in the US. I moved to America. It was very strange how it occurred. Obviously, I always dreamt of signing a record deal. Did I think it could happen? I mean, yes, but I don't know how. Um, but a record label heard my music getting mastered in the studio and called me and said, hey, in 2 weeks, you need to fly to America. We want to meet with you. And 2 weeks later, I signed a recording contract, and my Australian band and I packed up and moved across the world. But when I moved to America, I had always had my image in Australia of cowgirl hat, cowgirl. That was my thing. When I moved here, my song, obviously, when we did radio tour, was doing wonderful on radio. But my label were like, take the hat off, remove the boots, wear high heels, let's fix your hair. So I completely changed my image. And the song was still doing great though. Like I was having great traction. It was doing well at radio. 3 weeks into the song being at radio, the record label shut down.
Ugh.
So we were stagnant. I couldn't do anything. It was almost like a helpless feeling because I couldn't do anything, but yet I couldn't keep promoting the song because the label was still my label. So it was just a challenging situation to work through. In that time, I decided I'd either move back to Australia or I start songwriting, I continue songwriting in Nashville, and that's what I chose to do. And I remember feeling like at this point, I always had like I feel like I had a calling to just to go back to my roots. And obviously the song is about like a person missing a person in Texas.
Yes.
But for me, it's more than that. It's about missing that part of who I was, that cowgirl culture, how I was brought up my entire life on horses in the country. Obviously, I went off to the big city and to try and chase my dreams. And I mean, I would get so homesick per se that I would go to Kix Brooks's house and ride his horses, like his cutting horses, just to get on the back of a horse because I was like, I can't not ride. This is so
Equine therapy.
Yes. So I just had a calling to come back to Texas. I really did. But at the same point, I had met my husband, who now is my husband, at a rodeo. So obviously it was based around missing a guy in Texas, but it was so much more than that. It was about missing that part of who I was. And, writing that song, I wrote it with Jessie Joe Dillon, who at the time was just a young songwriter in town. Obviously now she's a multiple Grammy Award winning songwriter.
Right?
It's so great to see these like people see where they started and be part of that journey and now see where they're at. It really is, it just makes me so happy to see when you stick at something, how you can be successful at it.
I mean, and these co-writers are just exceptional. There's Karen Rochelle and Jessie Joe Dillon. What was it like working with them?
Well, obviously Karen's super cool because she's been Garth Brooks' harmony singer for years. So I'm like, oh my
He's had
gosh.
some stories.
I know. I was like, okay, like I love Garth. Like tell him I said hi, please. No, I've met him before and he's amazing. But I mean, obviously, you go into a songwriting room and you bring, I brought the idea forth, and just watching these girls help me turn it into magic is what it's all about. Honestly, it's like free therapy. Like it saves you a lot of money because songwriting is honestly therapy because you can just spill all your emotions on a piece of paper and get it all out in the open, and then you don't have to like go and see a therapist for life issues. But I've been so blessed when I was in Nashville. Obviously it was a little while ago, but even like the second single that's going to come out, I wrote that with Walker Hayes. And I remember, like vividly remember Walker not being, barely being able to pay, to put food on the table for his family. But I still remember him being the nicest, the most respectful guy in Nashville. Um, and at the time, the labels didn't want him and didn't say his music was relevant. And it just wasn't his time. And now I just see, the success he's had and how humble he has stayed. It really is refreshing seeing people like that.
We talked about the songwriting aspects, but when it comes to the production area of your music, how hands-on are you there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I like to be involved in every process. I'm always there, involved. Take Me Back to Texas, myself, and Karen actually produced it together. So I was definitely very involved. The next single Walker produced with his guitarist, and obviously I was there in the studio as well. But I always am open to when you're working with musicians like you do in Nashville, obviously they are the best in the world and they're brilliant. So I'm always open to listening to new, fresh ideas. But I definitely have an idea of how I want it to sound, and am very involved in the whole process. Obviously, I don't play the instruments on the recording just because I leave that up to the professionals.
Sure.
Um, I just, encourage and say, "Yep, sounds good. Doesn't sound good. Let's fix this. Let's fix that."
Take Me Back to Texas marks the beginning of a busy 2025 for you. You have two more singles coming out. Is this, though, a prelude to an EP or a full album?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. So I do have 12 songs ready that I could release. I am putting I always have expectations, but I am letting what happens happen. Obviously, I do have the EP ready to go at the end of the year, but if the songs are doing well, it may be an album that we decide to release instead. Obviously, it's for sure 3 songs this year, and then at the end of the year, it's either going to be an EP or a full album. Obviously, I want a full album because I feel like these songs are too great for people not to hear. Um, but being signed a record label for 15 years, I was always told what to wear, told what to say, told how to act, what songs to record. So now it's really refreshing being able to sit back and be like, I like these songs. I feel like these are relatable. This is what I want to do. being able to make the decisions myself is what's making this so much more rewarding, that I'm able to make those choices. And obviously, um, I, once the record label shut down and I was in Nashville, I did almost, I don't, not in a bad way, but I kind of felt a little bit bitter about the situation because I felt like I got the short end of the stick with everything that happened. But, look back now and obviously everything happens for a reason. I understand that. But for a while, I couldn't watch the CMT Awards. I didn't even want to pick up my guitar because it brought back too many. It was just too hard. I just had to separate myself for a while. But in that time, that's when I started the businesses. I met my husband. I started helping towards his career. Tyson's now a world champion rodeo athlete, which is amazing for his own success. But we did a lot in those years that I wasn't in the music industry, including having our children. So I do feel like had have I not had that break and separation, I probably wouldn't have all the stuff I have right now and all the opportunities. But I did feel like I wasn't fully fulfilled,
Mhm.
just doing all the other stuff. I knew that I hadn't done what I wanted to do fully in music and release the songs I wanted to release yet. So I always had that there, but really when one of our daughters said to me about 6 months ago, "Hey, Mom, I've never seen you perform before," and I was like, "Well, you have. You were just so young,
You
you
don't.
don't remember." Um, and she's like, "Well, why don't you do it anymore?" And like, well, part of me wanted to be like, "Well, it's kind of past my time. I had a chance," and come up with all these excuses. But I sat there and I was like, well, there's no reason. Like, I don't have an excuse. If I love it, can I do it? Yes. Do I want to do it? Yes. What am I waiting for? So that was the driving force that made me be like, I'm going to do this. But obviously, I knew if I was going to do it, I needed to fully commit. So I flew my Australian music director over and we shot 3 music videos. And I'm like, I'm 3 songs in, so we're going to make it all work. And that's kind of where we're at now.
You are a mommy, a musician, and a business owner. How do you balance all of that?
I have a good team of people, I will say. Obviously, we have the Shea Michelle buckles, and then we have the kids' clothing line, which we create kids' clothing and we sell it to stores around the US. We're in about 1,500 stores now, but I keep balance. Obviously, my priority is always going to be family first. And I think if I can keep the right balance as family, God first, that the rest kind of falls into place. But obviously, I don't like being bored. I like to work a lot of hours. Um, I'm very present when the children are home and they're not at school, but then I work late at night. If we travel and I do shows, they will come with us. If Tyson's gone, we go to him. Our children have been world travelers from the time they were born. So it does make it easier because like me growing up, they're used to that lifestyle, so it's nothing out of the ordinary for them.
Sure. Well, you worked with Walker Hayes on this particular couple of songs. Is there a dream collaboration you have in mind? Someone you'd love to just
Yeah.
absolutely. Reba, Shania, we know those are a must.
The newers. I mean, obviously, I co-wrote a song with Walker, and it's a duet. So I'm like, Walker, come on, when are we going to do this duet? I would love to release the duet with Walker. I'm a big Jason Aldean fan though. I love his family. I love what he stands for, his performances. So yeah, I mean, if Jason's like, hey, you want to collaborate? I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. I would love that. Um, Obviously, like right now, I have a lot of acquaintances that know Lainey Wilson well, so I just think it's amazing, how long she stuck at it with the industry. So I've always been a big fan of hers, even from the beginning. I'm all about girl power, so any of those collabs would be great. Lainey, Miranda, I feel like I can relate more to those girls. I think Carrie Underwood's a superstar, but I don't, Carrie Underwood's Carrie Underwood. She's just so perfect in her vocals and everything she does. I'm like, yeah, I'll collab with like Lainey Miranda, Jason Aldean, and I wouldn't say no to Walker.
Would you like to say then to everyone who are fans and supporters of the beautiful music you continue to make?
I mean, I guess if you have heard my music before, thank you. If you're new to what I'm doing, I understand because I did take a break. Obviously, there's a lot of history for people that are wanting to get to know more about me and where I came from and what I do. I have songs I released back as early as I was 16. So obviously those songs talked about different issues, how much love and real life as a 16-year-old had. But now I feel like I have a lot more depth. But I mean, my goal is to just continue to be real, showing people like the good and the bad. We're very present on social media, my husband and I, but we do try and keep it real and let people show like it's not all just glitz and glamour. But my biggest thing I would say to anybody out there is um, no matter how big or small your dream is, do not be afraid of failure because failure will stop so many opportunities in life. I would much rather say I failed, but I tried than look back and say, man, I wish I had a tried. I won't be somebody that says that because I would rather fail than not try at all.
Well, I think that's wise words that people need to take to heart more often.
Thank you. Thank you. I try and instill that to the people around me and, the people I work with.